እንኳን ወደ ዘረሰው ፖድካስት መጣችሁ።
ኤአይ ቴክኖሎጂዎችን በመጠቀም ለአማርኛ ተናጋሪ አድማጮች የተለያዩ ርዕሰ ጉዳዮችን አብረን እንዳስሳለን።
ይህ የሙከራ ፕሮግራም ስለሆነ የቀረቡትን መረጃዎች ትክክለኛነት በራስዎ እንዲያረጋግጡ እንጠይቃለን።
ዋናው ዓላማችን የአድማጮቻችንን የእውቀት ፍላጎት በመቀስቀስ ለተጨማሪ ምርምር መነሻ መፍጠር ነው። ይህንን ፖድካስት ለጓደኛና ለወዳጆ ሼር በማድረግ እንዲደርሳቸው ያድርጉ።
በተጨማሪም የዩቲዩብ ቻናላችንን ሰብስክራይብ በማድረግ የቤተሰባችን አባል ይሁኑ።
የእናንተ ድጋፍ ለእኛ ትልቅ ብርታት ነው።
(1894), England. A child was born into a distinguished family. His grandfather, Thomas Henry Huxley, was one of the foremost scientists of the Victorian age, the chief defender of Charles Darwin's theory of evolution, known as Darwin's Bulldog. His brother Julian would go on to become a celebrated biologist and the first Director General of UNESCO. His other brother, Trevenen, would take his own life. This was a family that had seen both the heights of science and the deepest darkness of the human soul. That child, Aldous, entered Eton College, and while he studied there, his eyes fell ill. A disease called Keratitis left him nearly blind for almost 2 years. A boy of 16, hungry to read, was plunged into darkness. His family were scientists, and he had planned to become a doctor, but his eyes closed that door. What did he do instead? He turned to words. He built, in language, the world he could no longer see. When he recovered, he went to Oxford. That time of darkness stayed with him. Because his eyes had failed him, he asked, what does it mean to see? Is everything people see actually true, or do they only believe what their eyes show them? That question, 30 years later, would become the key that unlocks Brave New World. In that world, people can see, but there is nothing worth seeing. Everything pleases them, but they feel nothing deep. Welcome, listeners. I'm Saba. Today we begin the first part of our exploration of Aldous Huxley's life and his novel Brave New World. Over 4 episodes, we will examine this writer and his book in depth. Today, we cover wide ground. Who was Huxley? His family, his blindness, his grief. Then we look at his body of work. What did he write across a lifetime? After that, we step into the history of his time. In what kind of world was this book born? Once we've done all that, we'll be well placed to ask, what did Brave New World mean to say? Aldous Huxley was not born into an ordinary family. To understand this, you have to look at his lineage. His grandfather, Thomas Henry Huxley, was one of the leading scientists of Victorian England. When Darwin published On the Origin of Species, many people opposed it. The church opposed it. But Thomas Huxley stood up boldly and argued publicly for Darwin's scientific theory. He was called Darwin's Bulldog because while Darwin himself stayed quiet, Thomas blazed in defense of science. His mother, Julia Arnold, came from the Arnold family, one of England's foremost literary and educational dynasties. Aldous was born at the intersection of science and literature. Both ran in his blood. His brother Julian became a celebrated biologist who served as UNESCO's founding Director General. But his other brother, Trevenen, he fought depression and lost. He took his own life. The family, dazzling from the outside, held fracture at its core. Here is the deepest distinction. Thomas Henry Huxley believed that following science leads man to truth. Aldous, his grandson, asked a different question. What if science itself becomes an instrument of control? What if instead of liberating humanity, science becomes its master? That question is central to Brave New World. Where his grandfather had fought for the proposition that science saves mankind, Aldous wrote that science can destroy mankind.
While Aldous was studying at Eton, at 16, his eyes fell ill. A painful condition called keratitis struck him. For months, he could not see. A boy who burned to read found his books fading to nothing before him. He had planned to study medicine and become a doctor, but his blindness shut that road. Yet inside him, something else was created. Another road opened, we might say. When seeing became impossible, he began to think about what seeing means. People believe they see the world as it is, but they call only what their eyes show them the truth. In Brave New World, people are always happy. They take a drug called soma. When trouble comes, they swallow it, and then the trouble disappears. But the trouble has not disappeared, only their feelings have changed. When a person refuses to see a problem, does that mean the problem goes away? That question rises directly from Aldous's experience of blindness. Then another darkness came. His mother died when Aldous was not yet 14. Grief does not let you stop. Life demands you continue. 3 years later, his brother Trevenen took his own life, unable to overcome his depression. People are not happy. People hide their suffering behind smiles. His family was famous, had wealth, had renown, had everything, and yet none of it could protect them from death. That lesson never left Aldous. When people said mankind is happy, he asked, really? When they said society is working properly, he asked, for whom? In Brave New World, society is perfect. Everyone is happy. But that happiness is false. There is no pain, death holds no fear, loneliness is unknown. But true love is unknown too. When a person is saved from suffering, are they also saved from joy? Does joy go with it? Blindness and grief. These two experiences lodged in Aldous Huxley, and years later flowed out in the form of a novel. The book's title comes from Shakespeare's play The Tempest. Miranda, a girl who has grown up alone on an island, when she sees other people for the first time, cries out, "Oh, brave new world that has such people in it." Her longing is sincere. That sincere longing is beautiful. But the people in that brave new world are traitors and murderers. Miranda doesn't know it. Her father Prospero does. Because she has spent her whole life on the island alone, when she sees other people, her heart opens with joy. But that opening is built on a lie. She has not seen the hidden darkness. Huxley chose this title deliberately. In Brave New World, there is also a new world. Everyone seems happy, but that happiness is false. Just as there is a darkness Miranda could not see, the people in Huxley's world have a darkness they cannot see either. They are people who have lost their freedom and do not even know they have lost it. In Shakespeare's time, New World meant America, the land Columbus found. That discovery blazed with the hope that humanity will begin a fresh life, but it became the foundation of colonialism, slavery, and destruction. Huxley knew this. New World does not necessarily mean good world, he tells us. Aldous Huxley wrote prolifically, and though 60 years have passed since his death, his works remain contemporary. Let us look at what he wrote across the decades. In 1921, Chrome Yellow. This novel shows a group of British intellectuals debating humanity, love, and art, but reaching no conclusions. Huxley mocked them. What does intellectualism alone accomplish? People talk a great deal, but do nothing. In 1923, Antic Hay. Set in the years after the First World War, people running toward whatever gives pleasure, searching for meaning but failing to find it. If the world has collapsed, what does that mean? Is loose pleasure just another form of grief? In 1928, Point Counterpoint. This novel is structured like a musical composition, many voices, many lives, all running in parallel. Huxley takes big ideas and asks what each character feels about them: love, politics, art.
The answer is that no one knows the whole truth. Everyone knows only their own truth. In 1932, Brave New World. Moving away from the circle of British intellectuals, he hurled himself 600 years forward. He showed the world through other eyes. In 1936, Eyeless in Gaza. The title is taken from John Milton's Samson Agonistes, Eyeless in Gaza. Like Samson grinding at the mill, it connects to Huxley's experience of blindness. The novel asks, what price is paid for human freedom? What does a person lose when they spend their life running toward pleasure? In 1939, after many a summer, he had moved to America and wrote about a wealthy man who poured his fortune into science in pursuit of eternal life. The idea is arresting. What would happen if a person lived forever? Perhaps after 600 years, he would become something other than human. In 1954, The Doors of Perception. This essay shook the entire world and became a founding text of the counterculture generation. Huxley took a drug called mescaline and wrote about the experience. His eyes opened. Things became luminous. What does love mean? What does beauty mean? Everything was new to him. The title itself comes from William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. Jim Morrison took that title and named his rock band The Doors. Without knowing it, Huxley left his mark on rock music history. In 1958, Brave New World revisited. 26 years after Brave New World, he looked at the world and wrote again. What he had feared was arriving sooner than expected. Many of his prophecies had come true in less time than he had imagined. Drugs had spread, propaganda had tightened, people had accepted lies as truth. Brave New World, he said, was no longer merely a novel. It was becoming the real world. In 1962, Island, written near the end of his life. If Brave New World is a dark dystopia, this is a bright utopia. On an island called Pala, he showed that people can combine wisdom with science and live well. But even that island is invaded in the end. Its conclusion is tragedy. Huxley never gave up hope across his life, but the world was unable to give him a simple answer. This man spent his entire life asking one question. What does a human being need to remain human? Without grief? Without anger? Without freedom? Or is all that pain the very price that keeps a person human? In Brave New World, there is something startling. The people pray, "Our Ford." They count the years as, "in the year of our Ford." For them, Ford has replaced Jesus. Their God is Henry Ford. Why? Henry Ford, founder of the Ford Motor Company, in 1903 invented what he called the assembly line. The idea is simple. One worker does not build an entire engine. One person tightens one bolt only. Another person fits the next part. Production moves fast. In this process, the worker ceases to be a whole human being and becomes one part of a production machine. Huxley looked at this with a thinker's eye. Ford's production process is not merely an economic idea, it is also a philosophy. It brought the idea that a human being could be a machine. What the worker thinks, what he feels, what he dreams, what he wants, none of it matters. Only the product matters. In Brave New World, this idea reaches its perfection and descends upon humanity. Human beings are produced in laboratories by a process called the Bokanovsky process. One egg generates 96 identical people. Natural reproduction is over. Everyone is created in a laboratory. Everyone has been trained to do a specific job. Everyone loves their work because they were created for exactly this. Just as Ford hired workers by saying, "Love your work," in Brave New World, people are made from the moment of their creation to love their work. Ford believed a happy worker is the best worker. People without work get resentful. they might move backward. So there is always work, always happiness. When soma runs out, there is more soma. The whole night full of music and sex, all bad feelings removed, without anger, without true love, without grief. Only scientific happiness reigns. Human beings are divided into 5 castes: alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, from top to bottom. All happy because they were created to be content with the level they occupy. The idea that elevated forward to godhood is this: it is better for a human being to be a part of a machine than to be a human being. Huxley heard this and did not weep. He wrote it down. Eugenics, to many modern ears, a repulsive word, especially after the Nazis used it. But in the 1920s and 30s, eugenics was considered an accepted science and a mark of civilized progress. Francis Galton, a cousin of Darwin, invented eugenics. The idea? Human reproduction ought to be controlled. Intelligent, valuable people should have many children. People deemed weak or undesirable should have few or none. In this way, society would improve. How simple and sensible it seemed. In Britain, there was a eugenics society. Prominent scientists and politicians participated. The United States went even further. In the 1927 Supreme Court case Buck versus Bell, the court ruled that eugenic sterilization was legal. This meant that people deemed disabled or weak could be sterilized without their consent. The court wrote, "3 generations of imbeciles are enough. Society cannot bear to carry a weak generation," it declared. These people did not think their ideas were cruel. They believed them to be scientific. If we improve the human being, the world will improve. What is wrong with that? They said. When Huxley wrote Brave New World in 1932, eugenics was a legal program. Before the Nazis came to power, before the Holocaust, eugenics was counted as legitimate science. Huxley asked what would happen if eugenics were made perfect. The 5 castes called alpha, beta, gamma, delta, and epsilon in Brave New World are exactly the outcome that eugenicists dreamed of. While scientists argued, when we shape the human being, the world will improve, Huxley asked, when these people shape human beings, what kind of world will be created? The answer is Brave New World, a perfect and perfectly terrible world. After the Holocaust, people fell silent about eugenics after seeing what the Nazis had done with the science. But in 1932, when Brave New World was written, eugenics was a mainstream scientific discipline. Huxley prophesied in advance what would happen when that science was applied. In 1920s England, there was a great fear. Workers multiplied, took to the streets, demanded their rights, went on strike. In Russia, the Bolshevik Revolution had exploded. Workers had seized power, it was said. The wealthy classes asked, will Italy be next? England? Winston Churchill and his like had not only fear, but also a dream. What if the workers were happy workers? No strikes, no anger, no unrest, just doing their work. What a beautiful world that would be. This idea was not new. The wealthy of every era have dreamed it. But in the 1920s, when science, eugenics, and Ford's production methods arrived, this dream seemed about to come true. In Brave New World, using the Bakanovsky process, they create 96 workers from a single egg, all identical, all happy, all in love with their work because they know no other love. Their entire lives are work. Work is love, and love is work. When they fall ill, they take soma. Anger passes, happiness returns. The next day, they continue their work. The workers are happy. The rulers are happy. Control is total. Everything works. Huxley looked at this and asked, what kind of world is this? The workers are happy. The rulers are happy. So what went wrong? You may be asking, Saba. The answer is coming. When everything is happiness, happiness loses its meaning. When a person says, I am happy, what does that mean? If there is no shame, no grief, on what foundation can happiness stand? Throughout his life, Huxley was fascinated by drugs, a scientific fascination. In 1953, he took mescaline. In 1955, LSD. He wrote about both experiences in The Doors of Perception. On the day he died, in 1963, he called his wife Laura to him and asked her to give him LSD. She did. His mind fully awake, he departed this world. He died inside a drug experience. So, is a drug an enemy or a friend? Huxley himself never gave a definitive answer. Perhaps the question itself is the main point. In Brave New World, there is a drug called soma, described by the author as possessing all the advantages of Christianity and alcohol without their defects. When people feel anxiety, they take soma. When they feel anger, soma. When they feel the longing for love, soma. They are always happy. When something is missing, soma fills it. Their lives become complete. Huxley wrote this in 1932, when morphine and similar medicines were being sold as drugs that make the human being forget pain, and people were accepting them with gratitude. Huxley asked, what if the drug were perfect? If a person is always happy, does he cease to be human? Without love, without anger, without grief, what is missing? When suffering disappears, does the human personality disappear with it? That question moves beyond 1932. Today, the pharmacies of the world are filled with antidepressants and anxiety-reducing medicines. Are people still unfortunate? Or is soma, quietly, legally, becoming the ruler of the world? By 1915, when the First World War ended, 20 million people were dead. The civilized world had attempted to destroy itself. It had consumed its own people with machines and science. After the war, people began to ask, what happened? Wasn't science supposed to save us? How did it turn into bombs? When civilization was supposed to improve humanity, how did it bring this destruction? Then the Great Depression followed. Fascism arose, Mussolini seized Italy, Hitler ruled Germany, Stalin entrenched himself in Russia. As fear consumed the world, Huxley wrote this book. Everyone had one fear, the fear of control. But what kind of control? It divides in two. The first is George Orwell's fear, the fear of 1984. Big Brother, television watching you always, police hunting you, people living in pain and fear. Power is oppressive. It presses down by force. People hate the government, but obey out of fear. Orwell's fear is that people obey because they fear pain. The second is Huxley's fear. People do not know pain. People obey not from fear, but because they are always happy. Control is not through police. It is through soma. Control is not through fear. It is through happiness. No one shuts your mouth. You yourself fall silent, drunk on joy. Do the rulers fear the people, or do they fear soma? This is where Orwell and Huxley part. Both fears are real, only the form of control differs. Looking at today's world, both kinds of fear exist, but Huxley's seems closer at hand. Our phones entertain us always. Media pleases us always. Control is not through pain, but through pleasure, a false happiness that rules the human being. H.G. Wells, author of the famous science fiction novels The Time Machine and The Shape of Things to Come, believed in the 1920s that science will save the world. When scientists take power, when the world is governed by reason, when war ceases, when poverty is eliminated, humanity will achieve true freedom, he wrote. Utopia could be near, not far, he believed. Huxley respected Wells, admired him, and read his writings. But he had seen the First World War. Science turned to bombs, making human beings its slaves, destroying creation. So he began to argue against Wells. The perfect world will be terrifying, he wrote. The perfect science can become the perfect destroyer. Brave New World is a reply to Wells. What happens when science is perfected? When war stops, poverty is eliminated, everything is provided. Does the human being remain human? In Brave New World, everyone is happy. Everyone has a complete life. No racism, no war, no poverty. It is a utopia, and a perfectly terrifying dystopia. Where Wells said science saves humanity, Huxley asked, what if science separates the human being from their own nature? In 1932, Aldous Huxley sat down and wrote this astonishing work. From the time his eyes failed him, from the time he made acquaintance with death and grief, this idea had been fermenting inside him. What could happen next in the world? What would the perfect world look like? The answer of Brave New World is this: the perfect world is the perfect torment. Because for a human being to remain human, they must be able to feel suffering. And when they feel suffering, they can also feel love. And when they feel love, life becomes whole. In the next episode, we go deeper into the world of Brave New World. We meet the main characters: Bernard Marx, Lenina Crown, John the Savage. What kind of world is it? What do the people long for? What have they lost? What happened to love, to art, to grief? We look at all of this next.
In the previous episode, we talked about Aldous Huxley's life, about his eyes that darkened and swallowed him, about his family who believed science could save the world, and about how the First World War, fascism, and Ford's factories together created a great question inside him. If a person were made happy, yet that happiness were manufactured, is that true happiness? Or is it slavery given a different name?
The year is AF 632, after Ford. 632 years since Henry Ford produced his Model T. Pause and take note of this. The year is now counted not from the birth of Christ, but from the birth of Ford. Religion is gone. Consumption is the new religion. The church has vanished. The factory has taken its place. The Central London Hatchery and Conditioning Centre, the house where human beings are hatched. It is morning. The director who runs the center is leading a group of new students on a tour of the facility's rooms. The students hold their notebooks, writing down every word the director says.
The director arrives at a large room and stops. It is a vast, mysterious place. Glass bottles are stacked in great numbers, thousands, tens of thousands of bottles. Inside them, tiny living things slowly grow. Those are human beings. The director points a finger at one of the bottles. The Bokanovsky process, he begins to explain. A single fertilized egg, too small for the human eye to easily see. That single egg is made to divide into 8, 20, 38, up to 96 copies. That process is called the Bokanovsky process. One became many. The many became identical. And when they became identical, control became easy. The director smiled and spoke. Major instrument of social stability.
The students wrote this down. The director continued, Those who grew up in the bottles move on to the conditioning rooms. The Delta infants, for example, dressed in their black uniforms, sit on the floor. Their faces are innocent, their eyes wide. They seem to hunger for knowledge of the world. Before them, flowers have been set out. Red, orange, attractive, colorful flowers. Beside the flowers, large, bright-colored books. The infants slowly reached toward the flowers and books, stretched out their fingers, tried in their delight to touch them. At that moment, a button was pressed. Electric shock. The infants screamed, fell, trembled in fear.
A second trial was made. The same thing happened. A third, again the same. Electric shock, screaming, flight. 10 trials, 20 trials, 200 trials. Now the infants no longer cry, but when they see the flowers, their faces clench in terror. Grief or fear fills them. They do not need to understand the word. Their bodies remember the pain. The director smiled and said, "Conditioned." From this point on, the Deltas will not love flowers. They will not read books. They will not be drawn to nature. The reason is simple. If they went to nature or read books, what use would they be to society? What if they disrupted production? Deltas have their own specific work. They were created only to do simple work: drink soma, smile, and live. In another room, there are the hypnopedia rooms where the infants sleep. The infants pass the night listening to words slowly repeated. A speaker beneath their pillows tells them things. Everybody belongs to everyone else. A gram is better than a dam. When the individual feels, the community reels. The infants sleep, but the words seep into their minds. This is hypnopedia, sleep teaching. Not education, but the work of sculpting the mind. The infants make no decisions of their own. The words have decided for them. When they grow up, they believe everyone belongs to everyone. They did not think about it. They believe it is their own conscience. Yet their conscience is nothing but the idea the speaker poured into them all night long. The director said, "All conditioning aims at that, making people like their inescapable social destiny."
This world has castes, not the kind known from history, but a caste manufactured in a factory. Each caste has its own color. Their clothing is their color. Alpha, gray, the best, the most intelligent, the doctors, scientists, and directors. While still embryos, they received ample oxygen. Their brains were made large and their bodies strong. Beta, red, the middle workers just below the alphas, technicians and administrators. Gamma, green. Delta, khaki.
Epsilon, black. The lowest caste of society, those who do the simplest work. They operate elevators, do dirty work. As embryos, their oxygen was reduced and alcohol was added. Their minds were made small. An epsilon does simple work and is content because he does not know another world exists. All the castes love this system because they know no other life. If an alpha tried to imagine living as an epsilon, he might feel sick. But what saddens an epsilon? He does not know what he is missing, so he has no grief. This is Huxley's central idea. A person longs only for what he knows.
Soma. It is a drug, but not an ordinary drug. A perfect drug. One that brings pleasure without anxiety, calms without intoxication, and extinguishes every bad feeling. When the director spoke of Soma, he was smiling. All the advantages of Christianity and alcohol, none of their defects. Soma is given daily, like a vitamin. When the day grows heavy, Soma. When grief comes, Soma. When questions multiply, Soma. When Soma is taken, the hours pass in happiness. The world becomes light. The person smiles and continues. Soma destroys questions.
Soma numbs anger. Soma drives away longing. Soma extinguishes even true love. So that people are happy without thinking? As the director led the students down to another room, they saw a man. His eyes are large, his face bright, his smile both cold and warm. This man is called Mustafa Mond, one of the 10 world controllers, the man who administers Western Europe. The director bowed respectfully. Mustafa smiled and surveyed the students. Then he paused and opened his mouth to say something. "You will all remember," he speaks slowly, "what came before our Ford." The students were confused because they do not know what came before Ford. They do not study history. History has been abolished because it is dangerous.
Mustafa continued. He spoke of the family, of fathers and mothers, of love and grief, of God. These words do not frighten Mustafa, but they are deeply revolting to the students. The word family disgusts them. The word father shames them, because they were raised to believe that family is filth. Then Mustafa dropped the word. The word is simple, but when he spoke it, the students froze in shock. Shakespeare. Silence fell. The director's eyes went wide. The students closed their notebooks. They did not know what to write. That word is not spoken in public. That word is forbidden to write. But Mustafa smiled, kept his gaze straight, and continued. Why did he say this? Because he wanted the students to understand. He wanted to show them why that word frightens them. Because Shakespeare wrote about pain, about love, about death, about jealousy, about longing, about anger. He wrote about everything a human being can feel. All of that is now gone. All of it was made to disappear because it was said to destabilize the order. Mustafa knows this. Mustafa has read Shakespeare, but Mustafa keeps it hidden. Why? We shall see the reason later. Lenina Crown, a beta woman, stands talking with her friend Fanny. They both work in the conditioning center. They wear the red clothing that marks the beta caste. Fanny looked at Lenina with questioning eyes. Lenina, how long have you been seeing Henry Foster? Lenina smiled. 4 months, she said. 4 months? Fanny's face shifted in shock. Isn't that a bit exclusive? Even in a soma-smoothed world, the word exclusive troubled Lenina. Fanny continued. Everybody belongs to everyone else. She repeated it like a prayer. Lenina, persuaded by Fanny's advice, decided to find another man. But inside her a question had formed that would not be answered. As Lenina was leaving the center, Bernard Marx stood watching her. Bernard, though an alpha, is shorter than the other alphas in his caste. It is said that when he was an embryo in his bottle, a mistake occurred and alcohol was added. His mind is alpha, but his body is small. When Bernard looked at Lenina, a different feeling arose in him. He wants to be alone with her, away from people, on a beach, at sunrise, just the two of them. He wished for this. But the world does not permit this, because everyone has been conditioned to belong to everyone else. Building an exclusive romantic bond is a crime. Bernard suppressed this thought within himself. His desire to escape society and take Lenina somewhere private, in that world, it is a feeling that has no name. People who see Bernard mock him. He's too short. What happened in his bottle? Bernard hears this. Being the butt of others' laughter has made him feel excluded from society, an outsider. Bernard requested permission, standing before the director, to travel and visit the reservation, the protected territory of savage people in New Mexico. The director granted it, but he paused as he signed.
His eyes traveled to a distant memory. 25 years ago, when the director was young, he had gone to that same place, just like Bernard, with a woman from London. When a storm arose, the woman disappeared. The director came back alone. The woman stayed behind. The director compressed his face and handed Bernard the permission, then dismissed him. He closed that memory. He did not speak of the woman he had lost. He did not want to know what had become of her. The order of this world does not allow people to carry old grief. Grief weakens. When they take soma, grief disappears. The director took soma and tried to erase the memory. Bernard and Lenina sit in a helicopter. They take off from London, cross the sea, arrive in America, New Mexico. As Lenina looked down at the world below, she saw something different. A world without drugs, unmade. The houses are old. The people are dirty. The elderly, as age advances, their skin wrinkled, their hair white.
They descended. The reservation, a vast red earth. The houses are made of clay. The people live a natural life. The people's eyes are deep, carrying grief, carrying anger, carrying love. All natural emotions visible on their faces. Children are with their mothers. Women nurse their babies. Lenina's eyes went wide with horror. "Horrible," she said. Everything seemed filthy to her, because she had been raised to believe that family and motherhood are filthy things. She swallowed more soma. That same day, the people gathered in a wide clearing. As the sun set, a religious ceremony began. The sound of drums and chanting fills the air. A young man with red skin and black hair stands alone and visible. People seized him and brought him to the center and began to flog him with a whip. The young man opened his chest to them, blood flowing, standing still, without screaming, without crying. Lenina squeezed her eyes shut, took out her soma. "Oh, soma, soma," she murmured, and swallowed it. But Bernard could not close his eyes. The image of that young man looking at the sky while his blood flowed was stamped into his mind. The next morning, as Bernard and Lenina were walking around, they saw a woman of advanced age, with yellow hair, but a ravaged face. Yet her manner of speaking marks her as a London woman. The woman's name is Linda. She is the one who stayed behind in the reservation 25 years ago, the one who had been the director's lover. She stayed behind, became pregnant, and gave birth to a boy named John. When Linda speaks, all her words are London words. Because she missed soma and it was unavailable there, she uses the ordinary drugs and alcohol of the reservation. The savage people hate her because she never gave up her London ways. When she sleeps with other men, the savage women beat her. Her son John grows up watching this and asks what true love means. John, rejected by the reservation people, unknown to the London world, is a lonely young man torn between two worlds. But he has one book. Linda brought it when she came to the reservation. The complete works of Shakespeare. As John grew up, this book became his world. John's words are Shakespeare's words. His love is Shakespeare. His grief is Shakespeare. His longing is Shakespeare. The savage people drove him out. They would not include him in their religious ceremonies. In all those times of exclusion, he would read Shakespeare. Othello, Hamlet, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet. To be or not to be. When Bernard spoke to him, John asked a question. "Will you take me to London?" Bernard immediately said yes. John was overjoyed. He was imagining that astonishing world. In his joy, he spoke Miranda's words from The Tempest. "O brave new world,
that has such people in it? I want you to stop and notice these words. When John says this, he does not know how broken the world is. The wonderful world he is expecting, he has not yet understood that it is an empty world, drunk on lies and soma. John, filled with longing and hope,
Bernard, John, and Linda arrive in London. Bernard goes directly to the director's office. Just as the director was preparing to fire Bernard, Bernard brings Linda and John into the office. When the director sees Linda, 25 years of memory come back to him. John moved close to the director. "My father," he said. In that world, the word father is deeply shameful and revolting. When the people heard it, they laughed in shock. The director, burning with shame, stepped down from his position. Bernard was the victor.
In London, John was called the Savage. He became famous as the Wild Man. Everyone wanted to see him. Bernard used John to become famous himself, organizing parties, calling friends. But John was tired of being looked at like an object. He refused to appear at Bernard's party. Bernard was humiliated. His fame evaporated. He was pushed back to the margins.
Linda is in hospital. She is on a soma holiday. She takes soma without interruption. The doctors know that taking so much soma will kill her quickly. But if she dies in happiness, they reason, what is the problem? They let her be. When John came to visit her, Linda was drugged on soma. She didn't recognize him. John was consumed by grief. But in that world, grief has no place, so no one understood him. When Lenina and John meet, Lenina has fallen for John, but John wants true love, the Shakespeare kind of love. When Lenina moved close to give herself to him, John pushed her away in anger. "No," he told her. Lenina's philosophy of everyone belongs to everyone else was, to John, nothing less than prostitution. The language of the two worlds could not communicate at all.
Linda died. That mother who had been thrust aside by the world, who had spent her life fleeing her grief with soma. In the end, her breath was cut off. John knelt at the edge of her bed and sobbed with grief. His tears washed down his cheeks. But in that world, crying is a deeply foreign and revolting act. It is a world where death is seen like sleep, where no one cries for anyone.
The Delta workers are lined up in the hospital corridor to receive their daily soma ration. When they see John crying in bitterness, what is wrong with this man? Why is water coming from his eyes? They stare in wonder. A human being's grief was for them nothing but an incomprehensible spectacle. When John saw those expressionless faces, the volcano inside him erupted. He leapt up in fury. He ran to where the Deltas were queuing, picked up the soma boxes, and began hurling them to the floor. "Don't you want to be free? Are you slaves? This is poison!" He screamed at them with his full voice. But the Deltas did not want freedom. When the one joy of their lives, soma, was smashed on the floor before them, they turned wild in an instant. A riot broke out. They fell upon John. Bernard and Helmholtz arrived suddenly at the scene. Helmholtz, without hesitation, jumped straight into the fray and stood at John's side, fighting, while Bernard, the fear inside him winning, stood paralyzed, not knowing what to do. At last, the police arrived. They did not need bullets. They sprayed a soma-laced gas. Within seconds, the people's anger was replaced by smiles. The riot stopped. All three, John, Bernard, and Helmholtz, were taken into police custody. This chapter is the heart of the book. All three were brought before the world controller,
Mustafa Mond. Mustafa Mond smiled and received them. Bernard and Helmholtz, you will be sent to the islands, he told them. Island exile, a place prepared for people who think freely. Then John and Mustafa were left alone. Why do you suppress God? Why do you suppress poetry, science, art? Why did you banish God? Why did you abolish poetry, art? John asked. Mustafa replied quietly. You can't have a lasting civilization without plenty of pleasant vices. Stability. God isn't compatible with machinery and scientific medicine and universal happiness. People remember God when they grow old and grieve. We have abolished both aging and grief. If you want stability, you must sacrifice art and religion.
But they are miserable. But their lives are meaningless, John cried. They are happy. What would be the point of making them miserable? They are happy, said Mustafa. Happiness is the highest thing. But it's degrading. For you, not for them. John argued. But I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I even want the right to sin. I want God. I want poetry. I want real danger. I want freedom. I want goodness. I even want the right to sin.
Mustafa paused, and then, in fact, you're claiming the right to be unhappy. In other words, you are claiming the right to be unhappy. And John, with conviction, all right, I'm claiming the right to be unhappy. Yes, I am claiming the right to be unhappy. I want you to notice these words, the right to be unhappy. This is the central message of the book. A human being becomes human by including suffering, grief, and failure. Mustafa cannot grant this right, because if he does, the system collapses. After Mustafa Mond's verdict was heard, John fled from London to an abandoned, empty lighthouse by the sea. He began to live alone, tilling the earth with his own hands, tending nature, searching for real life. He wanted to live far from the false system and from Soma. But his time in London had given his mind no rest. To cleanse himself of the sins he had committed and his carnal desires, he began to flog himself vigorously with a whip. Blood flowing, accepting suffering, he struggled to save his soul. But that savage society would not leave him alone even in his solitude. Journalists came by helicopter, photographed him from the sky. Tourists came to gawk as though at a strange creature in a game park. "Come on, flog yourself! Show us the whip!" they called, applauding him as though watching a performance. One terrible night, with a great crowd gathered watching him, the shouting and commotion at its peak, Lenina appeared in the midst of the crowd. She stretched out her arms and moved toward him. In that moment, John was burning between fury, love, hatred, and longing. His head nearly exploded. Swinging his whip, he moved toward her. The crowd, watching this amazing spectacle, screamed with delight. That night, John came to the edge of losing his mind. Under the tremendous pressure the society had brought upon him, he was completely defeated. He lost himself. The next morning, the sun rose slowly. All around was quiet. When the tourists came back to the lighthouse to see another spectacle, the door was open. When they went inside, what they saw was shocking. They found John hanged, his feet swinging in the air. He had ended his life. He struggled to continue as a human being, but in that perfectly false world, when there was no place for true human emotion, he destroyed himself in the end. John died, not because he was weak, but because that world gives no place to being human. The world cannot receive grief. The world does not know true love. John tried to be all of that, but the world could not permit it, because the world wants not a human being, but a product. When Huxley drew this world, he conveyed to us the deep message that in order for a human being to continue being human, the right to be unhappy must be defended. That is the story.
We have seen the story. We have seen what governs the world, the Bokanovsky process, soma, and conditioning, how John clashed with this society, and why Mustafa Mond regards love, family, and religion as destructive. John eventually took his own life, a man who, while trying to love Lenina and trying to flee her, could not withstand the world system. The world continued. Soma continued. Its false happiness continued. Now, let us step out of the story and move toward its depths. What was Huxley asking? What angered him? What does this book still tell us today? This question is the heartbeat of the book, and Huxley gives no easy answer. The world state's argument is clear. When Mustafa Mond speaks to John, he makes this plain. Freedom carries a heavy price, and that price is instability. War, famine, despair, lamentation. But the people are now happy. Even if the happiness is manufactured, happiness is happiness. And when Mond says this, he is speaking truth. This idea is hard to argue against. Jian objects. He wants his freedom, his suffering, his failures, all of it. To grieve, to cry for my friend's death, to face bad things. All of that is human nature, he says. But did Mond lose the argument? He did not. When John says, "I want freedom," Mond replies, "Fine, but that will hurt you." And it does. His freedom led to his death. Huxley turns this question to face us. Is the choice John made true courage or merely desire? For most of us, if soma were offered, a permanent happiness, a life without any anxiety, how many of us would refuse? Huxley asks a direct question. Most people, given the choice, will set aside freedom and choose happiness. Calling that choice wrong is easy, but living the choice is hard. The second question is this. If from the very beginning a person's mind has been sculpted, if their desires, their choices, the very language through which they ask what life means have all been given to them, do they have a true self, a true identity? Bernard had no choice. Because he was not created as a fully complete alpha, a mistake occurred in his bottle, he stood slightly outside the normal system. What did that difference do for him? It gave him reason to ask questions he wanted to ask, but it never gave him a clear language. That is why Bernard is always wavering, always seeking meaning, always calculating advantage and reputation, always feeling envy. He could not fully accept the society's rule of be happy with your lot, but he never found the capacity to be a free man either. Helmholtz is different. Alpha Plus, a writer, and a brilliant man who can move people through thought. The people love him. But when he is writing, turning words over in his mind, he thinks, perhaps there is something deeper I should be writing. But what is that deeper thing? He does not know grief, has never felt true love burn him.
has never seen death approach. So he wants to write truth, but has no experience to give him a language for what that truth is. Huxley raises the key idea here. Identity is created only when freedom exists. Without freedom, a human being is not created, only an excellent product. An excellent product can be happy, but it cannot be called a human being.
What is the greatest thing Ford contributed to the world state? It was not simply that factories began to produce people. Ford gave them a great principle. Instead of repairing what grows old, it is better to buy new. Rather than mending the old and using it, buy new. This is the world state's scripture. When an Epsilon's shirt tears, he does not mend it, because the economy grows only when the old is discarded and the new is bought. When Huxley wrote this idea, it was 1932, a time of mass production and expanding factories. And today, when our phone is 2 years old and a new model comes out, we call the old one weak. We see just how true the prophecy Huxley wrote has become. In this world, the words mother and father are obscenities and shameful. Infants come not from a womb, but from a bottle, from a laboratory, from a factory. No one held them before birth and said, "You are mine." No one lost sleep nursing them through sickness in the night. No one said, "Even if you fail, I love you." There is no family. Huxley raises a heart-touching idea at this point. Family has suffering. Love brings grief. Death wounds. Disagreements anger. But that suffering, that pain, that feeling of, "I woke all night in fear when you called," that is precisely what makes a human being human. John had that family. Drinking, dirty, heartbreaking as his mother was, she was his mother. When he cried for her as she died, and people who had never learned to cry laughed at him and asked, "Why are you crying for no reason?" John understood the moral collapse that world had reached. What it means to be human, he could not explain to people who had no family. In Mustafa Mann's office, there are books locked away. Shakespeare, the Bible, and other works of human artistry. Why? Because they are dangerous. Huxley penetrates deeply here. Art is not a painkiller. It is a witness to the human life. Shakespeare says the human being has a soul. That soul grieves, gets angry, rejoices, loves, runs away, regrets. If none of those natural emotions existed, what could Shakespeare have written? This is what Helmholtz understood. He is a writer. He wants to write truth, but that truth has not yet come to him. He does not know grief, has never seen death approach, so his truth is empty. When he reads Shakespeare, when John reads to him, the words astonish him. But because he has no experience, he can see only the power of the words, not understand their deep meaning. Huxley sets his scale. Without true art, there is no true people. When art disappears, the world becomes one large factory, and Shakespeare is locked inside a cabinet. What is Huxley's greatest creative contribution? It is bringing us the concept of the soft dystopia. George Orwell wrote 1984 years after Huxley published his book. Orwell created Big Brother, his eyes everywhere, police creating fear, rooms of torture. That oppression is direct. The people hate the government, and they attempt rebellion. But in Brave New World, there are no sanctions, no police, people do not flee, because they have no desire for a better world to flee to. Soma is there. When things go bad, there is Soma. When things are good, there is Soma too. Conditioning has made the people believe this world is wonderful, and that happiness is real for them. Huxley wrote to Orwell when he encountered his work. After saying, "Your work has astounded me," he continued, "But perhaps the people will be governed not by fear, but by love. People, rather than fearing the boot,
will come to love their own prison. This prophecy is crucial. Oppression that came through force can be resisted, but if people have willingly accepted their oppression and love it, who is there to fight? Today, this is easy to notice. People get angry when their phones are taken from them. They sulk when the internet goes down. Entertaining themselves, they lost the time to ask, what happened to my freedom? If Huxley woke up today, he would say, this is exactly what I told you. When Huxley published the book in 1932, what happened? Not everyone accepted it. H.G. Wells, the science fiction writer, called Huxley's work the great betrayal of literature. Utopia is the hope of humanity. Huxley has mocked it, he said, furiously. Ireland and Australia banned the book on the grounds that it disparages sexuality, family, and religion. But as the years passed, its popular acceptance, its adoption in schools, its renown grew enormously. It has now sold more than 15 million copies. 90 years later, schools around the world still read it. Huxley wrote it, and the ages vindicated him.
Huxley did not use Shakespeare as decoration. Shakespeare is the main pillar of the book. The book's very title is taken from The Tempest. Oh, brave new world that has such people in it. What Miranda spoke when she first left the island and saw the new world. John, too, spoke these same words in joy when he saw the new world. But Huxley shows us how false that joy is. In The Tempest, is John Prospero or Ferdinand? He is both. Prospero, knowing human nature, observing the world, being astonished by the people. Ferdinand, seeking love, seeing Lenina as Miranda. John is both.
Reading Romeo and Juliet, he loved Lenina. But what did Lenina understand? Nothing, because she does not know what it feels like when true love burns. Reading Hamlet, to be or not to be. John's own end in life was the same. When Shakespeare's world and the world state's thinking collided, John died. Mustafa Mond keeps Shakespeare locked in his cabinet. Why didn't he throw it away and burn it? Because Shakespeare is not superfluous. He is too powerful. Shakespeare reveals the deep nature of the human being, and that completely contradicts the system by which society has been conditioned. Huxley sets his scale. Art is not decoration, but testimony. Testimony that people existed, fought, loved, grieved, died. Shakespeare is the witness of all of this. When the witness is locked in a cabinet, the true nature of the human being is forgotten along with it.
In 1958, 26 years after publishing Brave New World, Huxley wrote Brave New World Revisited. This is not a novel. It is an analytical book. I wrote that world might come, but seeing it now, it is coming far too quickly. It has accelerated, he said. What did he see? Propaganda, advertising, people being made to accept ideas without their consent, society surrendering itself to consumption. All the systems that had been in Brave New World, Huxley realized they were becoming real in the 1950s. The world I feared is not tomorrow, but today, he said.
Island, written in 1962, is his final novel. On an island called Pala, the people are balanced. Science is there, art is there. They use a drug called moksha medicine. The children grow up in love. People are connected to one another. Huxley did not want to stop at Brave New World having destroyed all hope. A better path might exist, he thought, and wrote Island. Literary critics said the novel does not surpass his earlier work, but Huxley's idea is clear. A world containing love, knowledge, and true happiness can be built. Today, we have explored the deep ideas of Brave New World, the value of happiness without freedom, what happens to a person when identity is erased by conditioning, how commodity controls the world, what people lose when family disappears, why Shakespeare is locked in a cabinet, and what Huxley's final hope was. How close has Huxley's prophecy come today? What has Soma become today?
What form does the conditioning system take today? If Brave New World were written today, what might change? Dawit and Tigist will discuss these questions in the next episode. Stay with us.
After listening to the analysis Saba presented, after seeing all the themes through Bernard, Helmholtz, John, and Mustafa Mond, let us now come to the central question. Tigist, why do you think this novel still speaks so loudly today? Huxley wrote it in 1932. 90 years have passed. But if he were to write it today, what do you think he would change?
He would change nothing. That is precisely what is frightening. Only the form changes. The idea of control remains the same. And now it lives in the phone in your pocket. Soma has changed its name. It is called Infinite Scroll. It is called Short Videos. The algorithm knows exactly what makes you happy. It presses your button, you feel good. And feeling good, you go back to the phone. It presses again, you feel good again. This cycle, how is it different from the system in which society is distributing soma and numbing you?
You are right, and this is not coincidence. Huxley spoke about the feelies, tactile movies, where when a person sits down, their whole body feels sensation, not only seeing with their eyes. They feel pleasure, but think nothing. Today, when people put on VR headsets, today when content is engineered to stimulate human dopamine, that creative game Huxley played has changed its name and become social media. The purpose is the same. When a person wastes their time, they feel good, because when they waste their time, they consume rather than question.
But here we should pause for a moment. When we compare everything to soma, the easy conclusion could be all technology is evil, and that is foolish. If we take antidepressants, they are not soma, because a person takes them not to deliberately escape from life, but because they are in pain. A doctor prescribes them, and their purpose is not to make the person flee from life, but to help them live their life better. But when Huxley drew soma, society offers it freely, deliberately, to control people. There is no doctor, no choice, no question of conscience.
You're right. That distinction carries great meaning. But perhaps the main question takes us in another direction. Rather than asking whether antidepressants are soma or not, what worries me is the question, we have only treated the pain, but the social conditions that caused the pain are still standing. Why does a person grieve? Why do they become a victim of depression? Without raising that foundational question, if we only offer a painkiller, have we not arrived at soma by a roundabout route?
That question is very important. Huxley himself knotted this together in Brave New World Revisited. If the condition that brought suffering goes unchanged and we only erase the suffering, then the suffering was trying to tell us there is one great problem. Suffering is a symptom of a problem. If we only erase the symptom, the problem is still inside us.
The next point. Let us come to CRISPR and designer babies. In 2018, something that outraged the world occurred. A Chinese scientist named He Jiankui edited the genes of 2 embryos, making them resistant to HIV, and the children were born. The world was astonished. This is a great mistake, it was said. But when Huxley wrote the Bokanovsky process, that was not a scientific aspiration, but satire. Yet today, the tool itself, not just the aspiration, is in our hands. All that remains is the moral and ethical question.
And that ethical decision is not balanced around the world. If wealthy families were permitted to have their children born with enhanced genes, while another person lacked the means, that alone would change the world's order. When Huxley wrote Alphas and Epsilons, people are deliberately divided by rank from the very beginning of their creation. Today, if a person with wealth tries to create a child elevated in intelligence and health, it means we are heading toward that same world of Huxley's.
Another system of control is the social credit system in China. You are not imprisoned, you are not beaten, but you cannot buy a plane ticket. You cannot travel by train. That is soft control. The punishment falls not on your body, but on your rights. Huxley shows people being happy and obeying. Today, deplatforming has come, and algorithmic exclusion. A person is not imprisoned, but their voice is not heard. A person is not punished, but has no platform to express their ideas. Control has shifted from punishment to shaping conditions, from giving orders to closing roads.
And that may be worse than direct punishment. In Stalin's time, when people were imprisoned and killed, the people knew the government was the enemy and resistance was possible. But when the conditions themselves shape you, when everything around you seems fine, when everyone smiles at you, and you alone are the one pushed to the margins, then who do you fight? When John was isolated in the lighthouse, society did not beat him. It put a camera on him and watched him smiling while he burned inside.
Another question, Tigist. When we talk about the Bokanovsky process, what does science say about it? Huxley speaks of alpha genes. What does science say about this today?
Science says loudly and clearly that there is no such thing as alpha genes. Many people think intelligence is connected to one gene. That is completely wrong. Intelligence is polygenic, meaning it is created by thousands of genes interacting. Each plays a tiny role. You cannot point a finger and say, because you have this gene, you are intelligent. No scientist does this.
Meaning, even if the gene exists, it does nothing by itself?
Correct. It is called gene-environment interaction. It is not the gene alone, but a good environment that is also needed. A child with good genes, if they receive no proper nutrition, if there is no peace at home, if their childhood is poor, that gene will remain suppressed. Even if they create the perfect embryo in a bottle, once it leaves the bottle and grows, if it does not find a favorable environment, it will not emerge as an alpha.
I have heard of something called the Flynn effect. What is that?
A beautiful example. A researcher named James Flynn, studying IQ test results from many countries, starting with South Africa, found something astonishing. The global average IQ has risen by 30 points over 100 years. 30 points is a very large number. Did all this change come from genes? No, genes do not change like that in 100 years. The reasons are the spread of education, improvements in nutrition, women entering school, decreased exposure to various toxic chemicals. When conditions changed, the human mind began to work better, and all of this happened without genes changing.
So when Huxley created his alphas, that is not a practically possible science.
Huxley himself knows this. He knew it could not be practically realized. The Bokanovsky process is social criticism, not a genuine scientific prediction. What he wrote it to show us is the question, if people could believe this, if society could divide people to this degree, what would happen? There is also what is called regression to the mean. You cannot guarantee that very intelligent parents will have equally intelligent children. Statistics always pulls them back toward the average. This shows how complex the designer babies idea is.
There are charming stories about Huxley that many people don't know. Let me share one. That Huxley finished writing Brave New World not over years, but in only a few months, always amazes me. Because the book's breadth and depth looks like work that took a long time.
Yes, it is astonishing. Huxley wrote this novel in just 4 months, while he was in Italy in 1931. When he spoke about it later, he said, "I did not labor over it much. It just flowed out of me. Without needing much planning, the world was already ready inside him, waiting. When the time came, it poured onto the page."
Why was Bernard Marx named Bernard Marx? Have you ever thought about it?
Let me try. Bernard Shaw, the celebrated socialist playwright, criticized the capitalist system superbly. But when the system gave him a little fame and profit, he fell silent. Karl Marx firmly condemned capitalism, but the socialist systems that resulted destroyed human freedom. Bernard Marx combines both names. He is an intellectual who knows and opposes the system, but when he gets fame, he enjoys it and forgets his questions. His name is a rich, pointed joke.
And Helmholtz Watson. Why was he named Helmholtz?
Hermann von Helmholtz was a 19th century German physicist, a man who studied how the energy of sound and light waves travels. Huxley took that name. Helmholtz Watson knows that words have power. Words are waves. They can change people. But he doesn't know what deep thing he should write. Because suffering, love, death, all that real experience, he has never known. He has the power, but his words are empty.
This is perhaps the saddest thing. Helmholtz wants to write something deep, but does not know what to write, because his life experience is empty. His feelings have been erased by the system.
Here is another sad thing I want to tell you. November 22nd, 1963. American President John F. Kennedy was shot in Dallas and died. That day shook the world. That same day, another great man also died, Aldous Huxley. While every news outlet was talking only about Kennedy, Huxley's death passed unheard, forgotten by the world.
What an astonishing irony. The man who warned the world not to become infantile died, and the world, absorbed in other news, forgot him. Another thing, Tigist, do you know how Huxley died?
Yes, this raises another great question. As Huxley's death approached, his wife, Laura, was beside him. He asked her to give him LSD, and she did. He died while fully conscious. While soma creates false happiness and drives people away from life's reality, he chose to face the reality of death with full awareness.
The distinction between the two is perfect. While soma numbs a person and makes even death easy to pass through, Huxley instead kept his mind open, received his death in contemplation, and departed.
You mentioned the book Island, David, the one he published in 1962. Written 30 years after Brave New World, it is the mirror image of both.
What is Island?
Where Brave New World shows a dark world, Island is his attempt to show the better world. On an island called Pala, the people use a drug called moksha medicine, but it is not like soma. Where soma drives people away from life's reality, moksha medicine takes a person down into their own deep life. It expands the mind. It helps them see the world with greater perception. Huxley tried in Island to show a better world. It is his experiment in answer to the question, can a human being, continuing to be human, find true happiness?
Did Island become a successful novel?
As a literary work, it is said to fall below Brave New World because portraying a pleasant world rather than a dark one makes for less compelling fiction. But Huxley believed that human beings can build a better world. He wrote Brave New World not in despair, but as a warning, thinking that a better world might come.
What are Huxley's other books?
The Perennial Philosophy, written in 1945, Huxley studied mystical traditions from around the world, Sufism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Christian mysticism, and understood that they all share one common thread. That thread is the direct experience of knowing God. Huxley warned that when the modern world erases that inner life, the human being's continuation as a human being falls into danger.
And the doors of perception?
Written in 1954, where he wrote about the experience of taking mescaline. The mind has a reducing valve, he says. If we received all the information coming into it, we could not live. So the mind filters and conceals much. But when that filter is lowered, we see the world in its breadth. Huxley asked, how narrow is what we call normal vision? How vast is the world when that filter is lifted?
So Huxley is two people then? One, the writer who warned against Soma in Brave New World, and the other, the philosopher who took mescaline, searching for a deeper truth than Soma. Isn't that a contradiction?
I think it is not a contradiction, but a great distinction. Where Soma numbs a person and drives them away from life's reality, mescaline opens the mind and takes a person into the heart of life. One deadens the person, the other awakens them. For Huxley, the distinction lies not in the tool, but in the direction it takes you.
Huxley is two, the writer who warned against Soma and the philosopher who went in search of a deeper truth than Soma.
You are right. That man died seeing the world broadly, not fleeing it, which is why his very manner of dying carries great meaning.
The question now is for you, our listeners.